Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto Married Sakura, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Nara sat impatiently on top of a very hard and very cold table, waiting for that nervous-looking boy named Kyo to return with the results, although it was really just a formality. Ino's medic training might not be as extensive as her best friend Sakura's, but she damn well knew she was pregnant. And her husband was Shikamaru Nara for Kami's sake. He was able to tell she was pregnant with just one look at her. It was Ino's father that told them to make it official at the hospital and receive an exact due date. Ino sighed in annoyance and looked to her side to see Shika leaning back against a chair, probably counting the ceiling tiles for the 1000th time. It was at that moment that Ino heard it. She had never heard this kind of sound before, or maybe she had, but not to this degree. From somewhere outside of the hospital, a loud and painful cry pierced through the windows and walls of the building. It shook Ino to her very bones and sent a haunting chill down her spine. Ino and Shika were on their feet in seconds, rushing to the window, and both their eyes scanned the grounds for the source of such a mournful howl. It didn't take long to find the source. Ino, stay here. Shika was on his way to the door, but Ino already beat him there. The blonde said nothing, which was a shock, even to herself. But her eyes said it all for her. Shika sighed. Just listen to my directions, okay? Ino nodded, and they ran in a flash out of the hospital and down to the grounds where Naruto crouched over Sakura's body. Ino stopped short and gasped. In one arm, Naruto held the bawling Toru, and with the other hand he apprehensively hovered over Sakura. He looked completely distraught with tears streaking his face and his eyes flickering between Toru and the woman. His mouth was agape, like he was trying to find words to muster out besides the painful cries that kept tearing out of him. Ino had never seen the Uzumaki so helpless before. Finally the blonde shinobi lifted his gaze to the two, and the look of absolute hurt in his eyes shattered Ino's heart. Shush shush, she's not breathing. His voice was weak and broken. Toru cried on, the infant knowing that something was wrong with his mother. Shika immediately rushed down to the fallen pink-haired woman and pressed his fingers to her jugular vein. Ino looked at her best friend, and her eyes sharpened suddenly. Something was amiss. At first glance it looked like she was poisoned. But something in the back of Ino's mind said, Ino, take Toru and go get the Hokage. Now. Shika's voice was strong and demanding. The Kunoichi nodded, shaking her head of the negative thoughts. She was in front of Naruto in a second and held her arms out gently. It only took a moment to realize that the Uzumaki would not budge. His watery blue eyes stayed on Sakura as his shaking hand finally gathered up enough courage to touch the pink-haired woman's cheek. Ino took the sobbing infant from the shinobi and was off. She would discuss her thoughts with Shika the moment she returned. It was cold, and pitch black. Sakura winced, feeling a jabbing pain in the back of her head. Her heart pounded furiously as her mind was reminded of those nightmares she had months ago. This was much too familiar. Why is it so dark? Sakura moved her hand and felt something cold and hard to her right. She felt along her side and found several similar objects beside her. They felt just like bars. Sakura began to slowly process the possibilities. A hospital bed. But these did not feel like the usual aluminum that they would have in their hospital beds. These had more of a rusted iron texture to them. Her possibilities were dwindling down to nothing as she tried to figure out her exact location. She was with Naruto and Toru just a moment ago. Pulse is weak. Sakura's eyes snapped open to the darkness as the echo of those words vibrated in her eardrums. Where did that come from? That sounded just like Shizu. Where the hell was Sakura? Fumio, get her hooked up to the medical ventilation. That was definitely her Shizu. Was she in the next room? But it sounded so much closer, as if her sensei were right next to her. Sakura groaned in pain as she reached behind her head to rub her neck. Her body ached, but not as bad as when she was walking home with Naruto and Toru. Sakura-chan. There it was. That voice that she had come to recognize anywhere. Naruto. The Kunoichi's voice was weak, but it echoed around her, as if she were in some cavernous room. If only she could just have some light. And in an instant a faint glow from some unknown source poured a greenish light around the woman, illuminating the area all around her. She was in a cell. The bars that she felt were thick iron bars that rippled out for about 20 feet in length, and each bar reached up to about 12 feet. Her cell ground was generous, but the length was much longer than the depth. It gave her the ability to walk but not to hide. And beyond her prison. Well done, Ms. Haruno. Shota. He had a look of complete victory in his red eyes. The Kunoichi swallowed her scream of surprise. He was alive. Sakura's green eyes scanned him, finding absolutely no sign of injury or any clue that he had been in a fight. He wore a gray suit and his dark hair was slicked back into a greasy style. He looked absolutely fine. What? Well, you should know where you are. This is your domain. Well, Shota smiled maliciously, not for long. Sakura glared harshly towards the man and snarled. What are you talking about? How the hell are you still alive? And where are we? The man laughed haughtily and sauntered his way to Sakura, his hands lightly touching the iron bars. Death can be a tricky thing, Sakura. You should know that, being one of the most talented medic nins in all of the Fire Country. He took slow steps, walking along the cell. Did you really think that I could be defeated so easily by a simpleton like the Uchiha? His red eyes flickered to Sakura's neck. Or that pesky amulet. Ha. No. Of course not. I am Shota, the mighty mentalist of the great island of the Twin Suns. I could never be vanquished. And as to your last question, we, my dear Blossom, are in your mind. It felt like a shot of lightning struck her head. Sakura swallowed a painful scream and clutched her head. My mind. Suddenly she felt a warmth spread across her left hand, almost as if. Go get the test results and the herbalist. Naruto, you need to let go of her hand. No. Ah, I see you've caused quite the ruckus, my pretty little Kunoichi. Your loved ones must be pestering about wondering what has happened to you. But it's too late. Sunset is drawing closer, and with each passing minute, you will lose the control you have over your own mind. And you shall bestow it unto me, how very generous of you. But this was only a poison. TSK, Sakura. Nothing is whatever it seems. My chakra is unlike those of you on the mainland. On the island of the Twin Suns, our chakra is directly linked with our conscience. We're fanatics about the mind and the subconscious. His eyes glittered with absolute glee. I laced the blade with my chakra, and the moment I sunk my blade into your flesh, I entered your body, unbeknownst to you, of course. That is, until the moment you passed out. What a wonderful revelation it must have been to realize you were bamboozled. You fucking monster. It was only an insurance ploy. And call me all the names you want, Sakura. You won't be here for long. In about, I'd say a little less than an hour, the floor beneath you will crumble and collapse. And you shall fall into the caverns of your subconscious, a prisoner of your own mind for the rest of your life, while I, on the other hand, shall take over your body and continue my plans of having that Jinchuriki destroy the country that left my home in ruins. The Fire Country did no such thing, Sakura growled. Such a naive woman you are, Ms. Haruno. Your country is not of the noble upstanding that you paint it to be. The Fire Country is comprised of merciless, bloodthirsty cowards, as are all the other countries that surround it. They care for no one, even when we cried for help, no one came. Shota's eyes grew muddy and dark. And your lover just happens to be my weapon of choice in this plan of extermination. Extermination. Yes. I am going to slaughter every being that walks this land and all that are connected to it. But what will you have left to rule after everyone's dead? Sakura felt sick. This man was a psychotic murderer. He made the Akatsuki sound like sniveling little brats. A smile spread across his pudgy face. Rule. My dear, whoever said I wanted to rule anything? I am only in it for the blood. Once I kill all that live, I will release my hold on the Jinchuriki and watch him as he cries out for his beloved and all those he has slain. Then I shall kill us both, ending the pathetic existence of this human race. Sakura looked into his eyes and knew he spoke no lie. This man, no, this demon, was pure evil. He spoke of total annihilation of the world. He was the kind of man who would find pleasure in the blood that would soak the ground once his plan was set into action. The Kunoichi knew she needed to stop him. But this was new territory to Sakura. She had never been sunk into the depths of her mind this far before, not where actual objects and locations had been manifested. Did she have any strength in here? Could she even conjure chakra to her, manifestation? It seemed impossible. Naruto felt empty. He had never felt like a shell before, but he supposed the title of Jinchuriki fit perfectly well right now. His heart was aching horribly and he couldn't stop his stupid self from crying. What a fucking idiot he was. Sakura was in pain and he didn't even notice. She had fallen to the ground, unconscious, and all he could do was cry. Just sit there with Toru and cry. He knew that he could never be that happy for too long. Life was never that kind, not to him, at least. Naruto's eyes drifted down to Sakura, and he squeezed her hand. Ever since Team 7 was created, he knew he could never amount to the maturity that Sakura was at, but at least he knew he could help her in his own way. He protected her with every chance he got. And the one moment when it counted the most, he was useless. Sakura was so powerful with her healing jutsu and her inhuman strength, to just see her like that sent a shockwave of absolute horror throughout the Uzumaki system. He didn't understand what was wrong with her. You would if you'd use me, Kit. You could see what's inside her right now. No, Naruto refused to rely on the Kyuubi power. It was too chaotic, even with all the training Jiraiya-sensei had given him on how to manipulate and control it. It used to scare him when he was younger, all of the power of the Kyuubi that lay dormant within the prison of Naruto's body and mind. But now he knew it was a part of him. Something that he would have to face sooner or later. Wait. What's inside her? I thought it was poison. You refuse to use my power, Kit. I would not dare go against your wishes. Naruto snarled. Don't fuck with me. You brought it up. So finish it up. Not unless you show me some respect, boy. But, I suppose if you want that cherry blossom girl to die. Naruto felt his heart clench tightly, and the palm that was held against Sakura-chan's limp hand began to sweat. He refused to leave her side, even when Tsunade-chan threatened him with a year-long suspension and house arrest, he didn't care. He would not leave her. So he stayed alongside Sakura as the Hokage came in every 5 minutes or so. The older woman was obviously worried about her apprentice. There were so many lives that Sakura had affected. Naruto tightened his hold on Sakura's hand as he focused on her face, even though it was obstructed by all the tubes from the life support machine they hooked her up to. He could just imagine the beautiful pink-haired woman opening her big, beautiful green eyes to yell at him for doing something wrong, like breathing too loudly. Please yell at me, Sakura-chan. Say something, anything. You can't hide anything from me, Kit. I am you as much as you are me. You want to save that girl and you are willing to risk our lives for it. What are you getting at? Do you want to use my power? Naruto knew without a doubt that if there was even a slight chance of saving Sakura, he would race to the ends of the earth for it. The demon within him knew it, too. What do you want in return? I see you know me all too well. I am you as much as you are me. Very well, I want to eat Shota's soul. Shota. The door behind Naruto opened, startling the shinobi. He turned around, and his eyes widened into saucers. Sasuke Uchiha leaned against the now closed door, his eyes sharpening intensely upon seeing Naruto. The Uzumaki could feel him prying into his mind, sensing the stirring presence within the orange-clad shinobi. Well, Dobe, looks like you've got no choice. Naruto twitched in anger at the name, but his mind caught the dark-haired shinobi's words. I always have a choice. Naruto looked down to Sakura, missing the Uchiha's eyes roll in annoyance. This just happens to be one of life or death. I knew you would see it my way. Even the Uchiha brat understands. Okay, then. What do I have to do? You'll need me, Dobe. Sasuke stood on the opposite side of Sakura and looked down onto her in what looked like indifference, but after knowing the dark-haired ninja for years, Naruto could tell he at least didn't want Sakura to die. That was pretty damn sentimental for the usually unemotional bastard. For what? To get inside her mind. What the hell are you talking about? A small mistake on my part, and something that I will not let happen again. Shikamaru, would you like to explain? Sasuke looked to the door, and Naruto followed his gaze to find not only Shika standing in the room now, but also his wife and Sakura's best friend, Ino. Well, it was Ino that really saw what had happened, her specialty being in that area. Shika shrugged and turned to his wife. Ino approached the two men and looked down to Sakura, and Naruto could see her eyes water with tears. Well, it's a guess, but I'm pretty sure it's what's wrong with Sakura. Ino took a deep breath. I never really thought about this until now because, I mean, it's only a story my dad told me. Anyway, I never paid attention to him at first because I thought he was absolutely nuts. My mom would always roll her eyes and tell me to just smile and nod. Ino. The woman blushed at her husband's voice and nodded. My dad told me about this island far off from the mainland, called the Island of the Twin Suns. The people there were nuts and worshipped the psyche like it was a god or something. They developed ways to control people's minds by just looking at them and sending their chakra into them razor fast. Their chakra was directly connected to their conscience like it was a life force for them, but not renewable like ours is to a point. When they use the power to control people's minds, they use a great amount of their chakra, almost to complete depletion. And that's where their second development of power came into play. They were able to feed off of other people's chakra. But eventually the entire island went mad with power and was destroyed because they killed each other by feeding on each other's energy. My dad would always scare me saying that one islander remained and that he would come to eat my chakra if I didn't do my chores or whatever. Ino took a deep breath. As for Sakura's condition, she made her way around Sakura's hospital bed and touched the bandaged wound on the incapacitated woman's arm. There was an even more terrifying part to my dad's story. He said that they could manipulate their chakra like it was a poison or a virus. They could feed their power directly into someone and send their entire entity into them with the loss of ever returning to their own body. It's like a last resort, in case their original body was about to die. I think Shota may have sent a shot of his chakra directly into Sakura's bloodstream with a weapon. And he might be in her mind right now. Naruto's mind swam with all this information. Shota was alive, but he cut that bastard's throat himself. All of this was just going way over his head. What about what he said, then? You have until sunset tomorrow. Tomorrow being today, Naruto's stomach clenched tightly. Ino shifted uncomfortably and looked to Shika. Naruto growled, knowing the face of bad news when he saw it. What is it, damn it? Shika decided to speak next. It takes a little under 2 days for the host to completely take over the body, permanently. Naruto stared at him blankly. What the fuck are you saying? Naruto wasn't dumb. He was in denial. If what I heard is correct, Sakura has until sunset tonight before she loses control over her own body and mind. Shota will override her. And it seems to be that Sasuke's Sharingan is the key to entering her state of mind and that the Kyuubi's power seems to be the only thing strong enough to aid Sasuke to force his way in, considering Sasuke lost a considerable amount of chakra before. Ino's tears finally spilled over with her husband's words. Naruto's eyes locked onto Sakura's closed eyes, and he clenched his teeth tightly. Sunset was in less than an hour. So you can see why I'm so interested in this, Kit. No, I don't. What do you really get out of this, Kyuubi? I can relate. Bullshit. You don't give a damn about humans. What's your motive? Kit, sometimes things are better left unknown. Just accept the fact that I am going to help save your mate. Naruto took a deep breath, running his finger over Sakura's hand and tracing the groove between her knuckles as he thought this all through. Sakura would lose control over her body permanently by sunset unless they did something. And in order to do so, Naruto would have to use the Kyuubi's power to fight against Shota. And the Uzumaki did not know if the demon was being truthful about his motive, but that did not matter. So what are we waiting for? Naruto stood up, his hand still gently holding onto the sweetly sleeping woman. Naruto Uzumaki would never hold back from protecting those precious to him, especially his family. So are we playing the waiting game, then? Sakura leaned against the bars, her eyes burning with anger. Shota sat idly on a chair a few feet from the Kanoiki, watching her with sparkling red eyes. Well, he said, we can always watch a few home movies. I'm sure you have some that will tantalize my taste buds. He turned around slightly and flicked his hand. Sakura winced as a sharp pain stung in the middle of her head. In front of her were images and sounds that looked all too real and familiar to the Kanoiki, almost as if they are your memories, Sakura. Shota confirmed the woman's suspicions as he passed through each memory. More images and sounds, Shizu training her when she was 13, reuniting with Naruto at 15, missions, fights and deaths, all of these flashing by so quickly that it was making Sakura's head spin. But finally Shota paused on an all too vivid memory. Ah, a very passionate night, no. Shota's eyes were shining with lust and satisfaction as he watched through the eyes of Sakura as she first made love with Naruto. Sakura tried to look away, but her eyes made their way back to the mental screen. Naruto's image was burned into her memory, Every crevice on his body, every sweat drop, and every hair was perfectly shining. Sakura's heart pounded achingly. Would she ever see him again? What about Toru? He would lose his parents and his life, and he had only been on this earth for not even 2 weeks. Sakura felt the urge to cry, but she knew if she did, it would only bring satisfaction to this demon of a man. Suddenly Sakura felt a little tickle from the warmth of her left hand, along her knuckles. She looked down to her palm, her brows knitting together in confusion, but her stomach fluttered. This place was all too confusing. I guess it doesn't take much to make you purr, does it? Shota smiled and reached out to take hold of one of Sakura's pink tresses. The Kunoichi snapped her teeth at him. Shota yanked his sausage-like fingers away and curled his lips into a snarl. You won't be so feisty once that floor falls beneath you and you're pulled deep into the crevices of your mind for all eternity. We waiting for? Naruto's voice echoed throughout the mental cave and prison of Sakura's mind. She and Shota's faces contorted with confusion, but Sakura composed herself much more quickly. The Kunoichi felt a buzzing in the back of her eyes and squinted. Her vision was going blurry and had a somewhat red tint around it, a broken blood vessel. Was she able to bleed in this mental manifestation of herself? Hang on, Sakura-chan. Shut up, Dobe, and concentrate. The redness spread across Sakura's vision, and the sting her in eyes intensified tenfold. Her green orbs began to water, but she dare not rub her face, unsure of what was going on with her body. Then a flash of light blazed throughout the entire mental cavern, and a loud shriek tore from Shota's lips. Sakura fell to the ground and threw her arms over her head, not knowing what to expect in such an unknown territory. Did anything go in this place? No. That was Shota's voice. Sakura lifted her head to look at what had him so distressed. The Kunoichi's heart leapt into her throat. Naruto and Sasuke stood side by side, their backs facing Sakura's cell, a little over 1 foot away. Sakura's heart clenched at the sight of the orange-clad shinobi. How did he and Sasuke get in here? Sakura reached through the thick bars and tugged on the hem of Naruto's jacket. The startled shinobi turned around, and his eyes widened at the sight of the Kunoichi. Sakura-chan. His arms instantly found their way through the bars and wrapped tightly around the woman. Sakura pressed herself against him as close as she could through the metal, the shinobi's warmth an instant comfort to her shivering body. She didn't realize how scared she really was, how unsure that she might not see her family again. Sakura breathed deep and was glad that Naruto's smoky, masculine scent with that hint of ramen transcended the mental plane. You. An angry hiss emitted from Shota as his eyes glared daggers towards the two men. Naruto released the Kunoichi to face Shota but took a firm hold of Sakura's hand. Sasuke was the first one to respond. Still quite the cocky idiot, aren't we? You were the one who was fooled, weren't you? Shota was obviously furious that his plan had gone awry. Sakura could see Sasuke's shoulders tense slightly in annoyance, but he calmed his muscles. The pink-haired woman's own muscles itched to beat Shota within an inch of his life. But she couldn't find one faulty bar in the cell or even a lock. It seemed impossible to escape. You're really going to die this time, asshole. Sakura could feel Naruto's deep voice vibrate from his body. Well, so long as I hold you two off for the next 10 minutes, it shouldn't be a problem. Then I can kill both of your psyches here myself. Shota's eyes drifted behind Naruto to look into Sakura's green orbs. Looks like you're useless once again, my pretty little Kunoichi. In the pit of Sakura's stomach, her anger blazed furiously, and around the 4 inhabitants, the green light that lit the cavern brightened intensely, almost to the point of blinding Sakura. TCH, simpleton. Shota snapped his fingers, and the light dulled down. Sakura felt that familiar pang in the back of her head and crouched low to the ground in pain. Naruto knelt down instantly, his free hand running across Sakura's head as a look of worry wrinkled his face. Sakura-chan. You're wasting your time, Jinchuriki. Say goodbye to your lover now, for you only have 8 more minutes. Naruto growled, releasing Sakura's hand as he turned to Shota. Shut the hell up, you fucking bastard. Sakura looked through her pained eyes to see Naruto's red chakra leaking through him. No doubt that his blue eyes were turning into a dark shade of red right about now. You can't use your chakra here, Jinchuriki. Not unless you're one of the mentalists, said Shota. So is that how you mentalists kept your hold? By telling lies. Sasuke's voice was dripping with disgust. You are all powerless in this plane. This is my domain. Shota's voice suddenly grew in volume and deepened its tone to a demonic state. I can crush you in an instant, and I can trap you here like I trapped the Kunoichi. Wrong. Sasuke's voice was sure and strong. You said so yourself. This is Sakura's domain. Do you think my Sharingan cannot see into this place? Or let me hear what occurs within these pathetic fields you set up to block entries. You are the intruder in this place. The dark-haired ninja turned to Sakura, his eyes sharpening as his words were directed toward her. The only reason he has any power in here is because you're allowing him the strength. He might have put you in that cell, Sakura, but the only reason you remain in there is because you're being weak and insecure. Sasuke. Naruto growled. No, she needs to stop whining about being weak. Did she train for several years just to be taken down by some maggot like this? The Uchiha looked down on the pink-haired woman and shook his head. You really are the pathetic one if you can't take control of your own mind. Sakura's eyes blazed with fury, and she clenched her fists around the iron bars. How dare he look down on her? After all that she had done for him. After all that he had done to her and to the village. Sakura's breathing quickened and her muscles tensed. Throughout her body, she felt a familiar buzzing in her veins. Was that her chakra? This is your mind, woman. Take it back. A deep voice boomed throughout the cavern, shaking Sakura's bones. Who was that? Kyuubi. Shota's eyes widened in fear for a brief moment, but he drew a mask of calm over his face. The Kyuubi. Sakura's heart pounded. She was able to hear him in her mental plane. Her mental plane, this place was in her body. Oh, Kami, Sasuke was right. She had been in control all along. Naruto, move. Sakura knew that if she were to do this, she needed to have absolutely no doubts. In this place, it really was all about confidence. The blonde shinobi looked to her warily. Sakura-chan. Naruto, move. Sakura clenched her fists tighter, forcing that buzz in her veins to become a pounding force as she pushed it into her fists. Naruto moved to the side, and Sakura looked to Shota, her green eyes shining. You do not belong here, Shota. Sakura built the strength not only in her body but in her voice as well. This is my mind. So, the Kunoichi took a deep breath through her nostrils and coiled her muscles as she wrapped her fists around two of the thick iron bars. Get the hell out. She put all of her strength into her arms and hands as she yanked at the bars. They were tough, like she expected. But she needed to believe that they would give. She knew they would give. Sakura focused her mind all into that thought. The bars had to break. They needed to break. They would break. And in one loud crack, the two massive rods snapped under the immense pressure. The Kunoichi slid through the new opening easily, her hands holding onto the 12-foot-long iron bars. She tossed one iron bar aside and gripped the other tightly. The look on Shota's face was fucking priceless to the Kunoichi. For once in her life, Sakura felt powerful. Feels good, doesn't it? The demon's voice echoed. She smiled. Hell yeah. Sakura jumped up into the air, spinning the iron bar in her hands and aiming it directly at the fearful Shota. Sakura's adrenaline was pumping wildly. She would not miss. And she didn't. Her iron weapon made contact directly with Shota's shoulder blade, cutting through his arm like butter. Now that she didn't expect. It might have been because of her mental power or whatever, but it was a great bonus. The man shrieked as the arm that was chopped off dissolved into nothingness. Shota's eyes flickered in fury towards Sakura. I will not lose to a whore like you. Shota rushed towards Sakura, but in a flash of black and orange, Naruto was in front of the Kunoichi. The ninja rammed a fist into their enemy's face and sent him flying. Sakura grinned the moment Naruto turned to look at her. The blonde man's chest was rising and falling quickly with his jagged breaths. I could have handled him myself, you know. Sakura couldn't wipe the smile of satisfaction from her face. Naruto grinned sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head. I know, he replied. So why won't you two finish him, then? Sasuke walked up to the two. You need to chop his body to pieces to make him completely disappear. You make it sound so easy, Sasuke, Sakura said. Well, it is, so long as you think so. Sasuke's eyes flickered, and he growled. Move. But it was too late. Sakura felt a thick hand clamp around her throat as she was sent flying back. She landed with a painful thud right back into the cell she had just escaped. Shota's one hand gripped tightly around Sakura, pressing her into the ground of the prison cell. Sakura tried to think past the pain and their loss and think about victory, but the thought of death ransacked her mind. You will be imprisoned in here, Kanoiki, even if I have to take you with me. And below them, Sakura felt a strong vibration, almost like an earthquake taking place right beneath her. And to her right she heard the earth crack. The Kanoiki's eyes widened and she shook her head, struggling against the vice-like grip of Shota's. The crackling and rumbling sounds multiplied as the earth beneath them crumbled. Sakura did not want to die. She wanted to live. She was a strong Kanoiki of Konoha, and there was no way in hell this guy was going to overpower her. Sakura built all of her chakra into her legs and willed herself into this one thought. She had to visualize her actions course, or it would not happen. The Kanoiki took a deep breath and shouted as she kicked Shota off of her and hurled him directly into the iron bars. And just as the iron bar before sliced through him, so did these bars cut through his ligaments and torso. Shota's eyes widened in shock and fear as the last of his remains dissolved into nothingness. He was gone. Forever. Then the earth beneath Sakura fell away. The woman screamed and reached out above her as she fell. She didn't want to die. She couldn't die. She wouldn't. Sakura felt a warm hand clamp onto hers, and she swallowed a scream as her arm dislocated itself from the sudden pull. Another hand clamped around her elbow as she looked up to see Naruto using all of his strength to pull her up. There was no wall for Sakura to press her feet into to aid the shinobi in his attempt. It was as if the ground beneath them was hollow. Naruto, you're going to live, Sakura, he said in a raspy voice, and you, Toru, and I are going to go to Ichiraku and are going to eat ramen as one happy family. One of Naruto's hands slipped on her, and the both of them screamed. Sakura reached out her other hand to clasp onto the blonde shinobi and Naruto took a stronger hold of her once more, his eyes tearing. We can get married, have more kids, or just have Toru, it doesn't matter. I'll always be with you so long as you live. You will live, Sakura-chan. The pink-haired woman blinked away her tears in her pain and nodded fervently. Behind Naruto she saw Sasuke wrap his arms around him and pulled on the shinobi, donating his extra strength. Sakura slowly came up, and Naruto finally was able to grab her by the waist, and he hoisted her back onto the flat ground. Sakura collapsed onto Naruto as Sasuke backed away, all of their breaths jagged. You promise. Sakura couldn't speak any more than that. The pain from the dislocated arm was blinding. Believe it. His chest rose up and down, rocking Sakura into a strange sleep. What would happen if she fell asleep in her own mind? But the pain from this dislocation was so much, her head was swimming. The Kanoiki closed her eyes and was surrounded by darkness. The pain in her arm began to slowly dull. Sakura-chan, Naruto's voice was still strong and booming into her mind. Sakura-chan, she just wanted to close her eyes for a moment. The pain in her arm was fading even more. She was so peaceful where she was right now. Sakura-chan. Kami, could he just be quiet for a moment? Sakura-chan. Sakura felt her anger twitch. This idiot was getting really annoying, and if he didn't shut it. Sakura-chan, wake up. Shut up, Barker. Sakura snapped upright, her eyes flickering open into a blinding white light. She felt a strong tug behind her, and once her vision righted itself, she realized she was in a hospital room, surrounded with familiar faces. The tug was from her oxygen mask. The Kanoiki pulled off the apparatus and took several breaths of the cold and sterile hospital air before she calmed down. Good job, Naruto. Your annoying voice really did snap her out of that coma. Kiba smiled happily with an arm around Hinata, who was currently in tears as she held onto her twin babies. She wasn't the only one who was crying. Ino was right next to Sakura and instantly wrapped her arms around the pink-haired woman, uncontrollably blubbering. Billboard brow. You're awake. You're alive. Thank Kami. She sobbed into Sakura's shoulder, smearing body fluids into the hospital gown that Sakura wore. The Kanoiki was in a daze. She had just been in her mental plane, and now here she was, in the hospital. Okay, Nara. Back off my student. She needs to breathe. Beside Ino stood Tsunade Shizu, a look of relief in her brown eyes. Ino pulled away, and Shizu wrapped her arms around Sakura despite her previous chiding towards Ino. The pink-haired woman gasped lightly at the affectionate gesture of her sensei. As her Shizu stepped away, Sakura finally took in all the people around her, Kiba, Hinata, Ino, Shikamaru, Sasuke, Tsunade Shizu, and Naruto. Sakura looked to the orange-clad shinobi and smiled weakly. She felt tired, though she had been asleep for a while. A loud cry sounded from outside the room, and Sakura looked to the door to see Shizune carrying in a fussy Toru. Sakura's heart leapt as the Hokage's assistant handed the infant boy over to Naruto. The blonde man smiled down to the boy and turned the baby towards Sakura. Toru stopped crying the moment he looked into his mother's eyes. He lifted his arms towards her, and Sakura reached out to him as well, her heart swelling. Naruto handed Toru over to Sakura, and the woman sighed happily. He was safe and so was Naruto. Shota was dead, and her village was safe. Kami, her family was safe. Sakura looked down to Toru, a complete likeness of his father save for his eyes, he was perfect. I love you, she said softly. A pair of big and clumsy arms wrapped around her. I love you too, Sakura-chan. Naruto's voice was loud and happy as he rubbed his head into Sakura's good shoulder. I was talking to Toru, Barker. And don't yell in the hospital. Everyone around them laughed, releasing all the tension that had built in the room from waiting for the Kunoichi to wake up and speak. Naruto adjusted himself onto the bed and had one arm wrapped around the pink-haired woman's waist. Sakura and Naruto looked back down to Toru and saw him smile happily. Glad that's over. Sasuke moved over towards the three. Sakura looked up to Sasuke and smiled. Thank you. She truly meant it. He had done so much for her. The dark-haired ninja said nothing. But, it could have been a trick of the eye, Sakura might have just been insane off of the oxygen gas they provided for her, but she could have sworn she saw the slightest hint of red across the Uchiha's cheeks. It was impossible. A sound interrupted Sakura's thoughts. The most beautiful and innocent sound she had ever heard before, Toru's laugh. She looked down to Toru to find him looking at Sasuke, laughing. Is that spawn of the Dobe laughing at me? That's my boy. Naruto laughed happily. He just likes you, Sasuke. Sakura tried to cover up her own snort of laughter, but it was too much for her. Sasuke rolled his eyes and looked down to Toru. Children are annoying, and though he said it in a completely serious tone, Sakura could tell somewhere deep within the Uchiha that Toru just might have begun to crack the shell that had kept Sasuke isolated from the world for so long. Sakura smiled and looked down at her son. The little one smiled back and laughed even more. Ino moved over to get closer to Toru and began to coo over the baby. That was when Sakura heard Naruto yawn loudly. Can we go home now? Naruto looked over to Tsunade Shizu, a look of eagerness in his eyes. Tsunade blazed with anger. Absolutely not. Sakura just woke up, and she needs to recover from having dislocated her arm. Her body can only take so much. Naruto saddened and looked from Toru to Sakura for a moment. Then, almost in a flash, a spark of mischief lit his eyes. He turned back to the Hokage and smiled wickedly. You know, Tsunade-chan, the sooner you sign Sakura's discharge papers, the sooner we can have our wedding ceremony. And that means you can drink as much as you want without Shizune or Sakura barking at you. Sakura opened her mouth to protest. She didn't know that Naruto wanted to get married right away. But when she looked to Naruto and saw him lean in close to her to whisper with a softened look in his eyes, she melted. Will you marry me? His breath was warm, and it tickled Sakura right down to her toes. And the Kunoichi knew that there wasn't a doubt in her mind that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with this blonde idiot. No matter how long it was, no matter how irritating, no matter what was thrown at him, or what she threw at Naruto, in some cases. They would face it like they faced everything else, together. Sakura looked to the other people in the room and knew they had heard. Nothing could be hidden from Shinobi at this distance. They all had expectant, shining eyes, except for the usual indifferent Uchiha gaze, and Sakura laughed. Her time to bloom had come. She took a deep breath and smiled widely, looking back to her blonde love. A blush came over her cheeks as she found her words. Yes, Barker, yes, I will. She leaned in close to lightly brush her lips across Naruto's burning cheeks. Shizune, get me a pen. Sakura and Naruto looked over to the fifth Hokage as the older woman sighed. Who the hell am I to pass up free liquor? Toru. Stay still, AACK. A loud splash sounded from inside Sakura Haruno's apartment, followed by the loud and lovable laughter of a certain 4-week-old baby boy. Inside, the Kunoichi-turned mother was giving her son a long-needed bath, especially since today was the day Sakura was supposed to go out with Ino to buy the pink-haired woman's wedding gown. A cool chill of excitement ran down Sakura's spine at the thought of that one word, wedding. Sakura was getting married. The Kunoichi could feel her face heat up with a deep blush as her thoughts trailed to the events that would commence within the next week. And then she would no longer be Sakura Haruno, but Sakura. A loud rapping sounded on the door, followed by a very loud and very familiar voice. We don't need to knock, team. I live here. Well, Dobe, some of us still retain basic manners. Toru looked at Sakura with his big green eyes as his smile widened. He could recognize those two voices almost as well as his mother could. His mind was developing rapidly and could do things that surprised his parents beyond imagining. Sakura grabbed a big fluffy towel and pulled Toru out from the small tub, wrapping him up before opening the door to her two teammates. There stood Naruto and Sasuke glaring at each other, just as usual. Sakura felt her infant son moving wildly in her arms at the sight of his father, and his loud squeal caught the feuding teammates' attention immediately. Naruto's blue eyes shined brightly as he looked towards his son and reached out a finger towards the boy. Toru instantly latched his tiny hand onto the Uzumaki's finger and giggled happily at the contact. Sasuke looked at Toru with his dark, emotionless eyes and looked on as Naruto started to take hold of his son. I thought Kakashi-sensei was supposed to babysit. Sakura's eyes flickered between her fiancé and the Uchiha. The silver-haired ninja was all too happy to look after Toru while Sakura was out with Ino in the downtown shopping district. I mean, Naruto, aren't you supposed to be out choosing your suit? Ino had given a very detailed list of requirements for the outfits, color of the ties, vests, jackets, and pants, their lengths, style, and accessories. She was adamant about no tails to the suits, otherwise those tails would not be the only thing to be cut off with her scissors. Shika was supposed to meet Naruto and his groomsmen at the tailor's shop not too far from where Sakura would be purchasing her own outfit. Naruto flashed a toothy grin and rubbed the back of his neck. Ah, well, Sakura-chan, we were on our way to Kakashi-sensei anyway, so he asked if we could bring him over to the Eastern Fields. Sakura's mind sparked. Eastern Fields. Her eyes flickered in anger. What are you planning to do there? Though she damn well knew, the Kunoichi was hoping that there was a sliver of a chance they were just going to watch some of the last of the summer bugs laze about the forest fields. Train, of course. Sasuke rolled his eyes, never having the patience for stupid questions. We were going to loosen up a bit before going to meet Shika. Naruto held Toru a little bit higher than usual, as if to bring him into Sakura's line of sight more vividly. The damn idiot was using him as a shield. Sakura growled harshly. You are not taking our 4-week-old son to the training fields, Barker. Sakura's hands itched to clock that orange-clad shinobi right on top of his thick skull, but not while Toru was here. Sakura was trying to minimize the amount of abuse she dealt to her blonde idiot of a lover, though, he made it increasingly difficult every time he pulled a stunt like this. Suddenly Sakura felt another presence behind the two men. The pink-haired woman moved instinctively in front of Naruto and Toru, though it took only a second to find that her efforts were not needed. Hello, Sakura-chan. Hello, Sasuke-kun, and Naruto-kun. Hinata Inuzuka's pale face darkened with a blush as the attention was focused all onto her. The violet-haired woman opted to focus her own attention upon Toru and smiled warmly towards the blonde baby boy. Hello, Toru-kun. Sakura sighed, her tension leaving her for the moment. Hinata, I'm sorry, but I'm not ready yet. I was just telling these two that they cannot bring an infant boy to the training fields. Hinata's eyes lifted in surprise. Oh, why not? Sakura's mind halted for a long pause. Why not? Hinata, are you insane? The violet-haired woman blushed a deeper red, but her eyes remained calm. Well, Kiba is actually taking Ran and Hana to the Eastern training fields as well. Though they're only 4 months old, I know Kiba would never let anything happen to them. Besides, he wants them to get used to the world the parents are in. I don't think it's that insane. But, Sakura never thought about it that way, but she still thought it was a terrible idea. They could get hurt from some stray weapon or... We're actually going to be focusing on low-impact taijutsu. Sasuke's voice sounded impatient. He obviously wanted to leave as soon as possible. Yeah, so no one comes to the wedding with stitches, broken bones, or whatever. Naruto laughed and kept his bright blue gaze locked onto Sakura. The Kunoichi felt her heart flutter and her stomach flip in reaction to just this simple action. The blonde man smiled and reached a hand out to Sakura, taking a firm grip of her hand. Nothing will happen to him, Sakura. I promise. The woman squeezed his hand in response and leaned in to lightly kiss the top of Toru's head. The golden-haired boy cooed happily in return, flooding Sakura with comfort and reassurance of his safety. Of course Naruto wouldn't let anything happen to him. And as much as the medic nin wanted to deny it, Hinata was right. Trying to protect Toru from the shinobi world that he lived in was impossible and ridiculous. Though it still irked the Kunoichi. We better get going, Sakura-chan. Oh, otherwise Ino-chan might very well kill me. Sakura nodded and gave Naruto's large warm hand one more squeeze before she turned around to change. But Naruto tugged on her hand gently, forcing the Kunoichi to turn back and look into his deep blue eyes. Those magnificent blue orbs never ceased to send those sweet chills throughout her body. The couple said nothing, but Sakura knew nothing had to be spoken. Though Naruto was at times a complete idiot, he could read people all too well. And right now was no exception as a feeling of intimacy passed between the two. Sakura blushed slightly, her mind flickering to some immensely perverted thoughts that would have made Kakashi-sensei blush. These past few weeks had been filled with tending to Toru and setting up the wedding, sucking the couple dry of any energy. And when night would fall, the Uzumaki and the Haruno would collapse onto the bed that lay 10 feet and one wall from their infant's crib, only to awaken within hours to feed, change, or burp Toru. And somehow throughout the last weeks, Sakura found herself a lot more attentive to Naruto's touches and slight brushes across her skin. Even if it was something as simple as his hand grazing hers as the blonde shinobi reached for a bottle of milk for Toru, the pink-haired woman would feel a heat stir deep within her, a feeling she hadn't felt since the night they first made love. Only, with every passing day, that warm feeling seemed to be building up, like a volcano with pulsing magma stirring below, waiting to burst into the cold air and set fire to the land that lay all around. Kami, Sakura. You need to get laid big time. Sakura shot up in her seat stock straight, her vision swimming in a blur between reality and fantasy. She was in the downtown shopping district of Konoha, specifically, one of the dress shops that specialized in wedding gowns. The Kunoichi rubbed her eyes and groaned. How many shops had she been to? 5. No, it felt more like 8. Every time Sakura would try on a dress, Ino's hawk-like eyes would show no mercy and her voice would bark with orders to bring out the other gowns in inventory. How many wedding dress stores could there be in a village such as Konoha? This had to be the last of them. Suddenly the woman's mind began to process her blonde friend's words. What? I personally thought that you and Naruto would be fucking like rabbits after the Hokage-sama discharged you, but I suppose I was wrong. You look so sexually frustrated that it makes me want to cry. Ino pulled the pink-haired woman up to a standing position as another dress was brought in to be fitted. Sakura instantly knew she would never wear something like that. The shoulder pads looked disgustingly puffy, like 2 massive marshmallows were sewn to the sleeves. Sakura looked to the shop owner and shook her head politely before the older woman could take another step closer. The elder female nodded knowingly and scanned Sakura for one quick moment before she took off to look for another dress. Ino, you always say that to everyone. Sakura sat back down, leaning her head against the back of the chair in exhaustion. To Ino, no one was having enough sex. Well, for once, Sakura looked to the side to see Tenten munching thoughtfully on some complimentary sandwiches offered by the shop. Ino is right. You look like a cat in heat, Sakura. The woman blushed deeply and sat up straight in her chair once more. Would you guys stop? There was no way she was sexually frustrated. Was there? Yes, she found herself thinking about things that would normally make her want to vomit or punch the nearest opposite gender for even contemplating such lewd thoughts, but she couldn't help herself. Every time Naruto would come out of the shower, wrapped in nothing but a towel she had previously used, her mind would darken with something so deliciously perverted that she would all but run out of the room. Naruto's golden skin would glisten with that after-shower sheen, and his hair was tousled and so fragrant, it almost seemed as if he were teasing Sakura. Did Naruto have any idea of how he tormented the Kunoichi with just the sight of his half-naked body? The ripples of his pectorals and the lean muscles that lined along his toned arms and legs made Sakura want to scream. But, Sakura's mind suddenly flickered back towards the obvious block in her sexual fantasies and efforts. I have to take care of Toru. PSH. What bullshit are you spouting now, Sakura? Ino stood pertly in front of the pink-haired woman, her pale blue eyes scrutinizing. Hinata and Kiba have twins, and I guarantee they find time to knock boots. Aino-chan. Hinata's face darkened into a deep red, and she fiddled with her hands. KKKK Kiba-kun and we wouldn't around. Despite her protest, it was all too obvious that the Inuzuka sex life was a roaring flame compared to Sakura's ember of fantasies. So why don't you just put Toru to sleep tonight and have at it? Ino sat down next to Sakura and wrapped her arm around the Kunoichi's shoulders. Sakura, I'm just a concerned friend. You look like you really need some stress relief, and let me tell you that there is no better release than having multiple, massive augers. Ino. Sakura looked around the shop for the older woman. There was no sign of the owner, but better safe than sorry. The Kunoichi sighed and looked to her friends. Look, it's not like I don't want to, but I'm not good at instigating something like that. Though she had the one to start their sexual encounter the first and only time, it was under the influence of that fruit Tama had given her. Sakura didn't know if she could muster up that same courage to tell Naruto she wanted to. Ugh, she couldn't even think about the word. Well, maybe Naruto has the exact same problem. Tenten placed her sandwich down and stretched out lazily. Sakura never thought that Naruto would ever be the one to make the first move, it just didn't seem to be in his character. But she found that with every night, she vainly hoped that the Uzumaki would do something, anything to cure this feeling that was driving Sakura wild. Miss. Sakura's attention was gratefully drawn away from the topic by the same old shopkeeper she was looking out for. The old shop owner was standing in front of the group of women, holding out a soft, white silk gown. It was simple, with a short train and off-the-shoulder cut with very short sleeves that would let Sakura breathe in the unforgiving summer heat. The material looked light yet elegant. And there was a wonderful absence of puff and lace. Sakura heard Ino's voice thrum beside her. But the Kunoichi took none of it into consideration. May I? The pink-haired woman reached out to the gown, and the shopkeeper nodded happily. Sakura stripped down, no longer shy about showing some skin after the numerous shops she had been to, and slipped into the dress. It felt cool to the touch against her skin. The bodice fit like a glove, enough to show her curves, enough for her to breathe, especially with the off-the-shoulder cut allowing her shoulders to show. The skirt of the gown wasn't princess style, but more of a gentle summer dress where it flowed down her hips and legs like a waterfall, drifting behind her no more than a foot. The smooth white color complemented her light skin and bright eyes and hair. It was perfect. Oh, Sakura. The woman turned to look to her friends and found them all smiling warmly towards her. They apparently agreed with the gown just as much as Sakura did. Shall I wrap it up, then? The old shopkeeper said. Sakura nodded and looked into the floor-length mirror once more, taking in the sight of herself in her wedding gown. Finally, she would have a happy ending. No, this isn't an ending. Not with that Barker as a husband. It was just the beginning. Okay, Kyo. This should be simple. Toru's things are all in the top cupboard, and he's just about ready for a long nap. If he gets fussy, which he rarely does, let him drink some broth from the ramen on the stove. That usually sedates him. Sakura looked to the nervous-looking intern and inwardly sighed. Don't worry, Haruno-san. Fumiyo gently wrapped an arm around the nervous Kyo and smiled. I'll be here to help him. You just go and enjoy your bachelorette party. Sakura had hired the two of them to watch over Toru while she was at the party. She decided to keep them in her apartment since Toru was familiar with the setting. But Sakura knew she had no real reason to worry too much. Toru loved to meet new people and was never one to be too fussy. Sure, he woke up at all hours of the night, but that was normal for any baby. Sakura looked down at Toru and kissed the top of his golden forehead, taking in his scent, baby powder and ramen. It almost made her laugh at Toru's quick likening towards the food of choice. Though Sakura would only allow him to sip the broth from Naruto's meal every now and then, she knew the moment Toru could chew properly, he would become a fiend for ramen. Thankfully, the boy still did not have any teeth and wouldn't for a while. Well, I'll be seeing you soon, love. She whispered to the blonde infant and kissed him one more time. As she handed the green-eyed beauty to Fumiyo, Sakura felt a dull ache in her chest. She knew it was usual for new mothers to feel like that when they left their child alone, even for a short amount of time, but that did nothing to dull the pain. He'll be fine, Haruno-san. Fumiyo looked over to Kyo with a smile, and the young man nodded in turn. Sakura didn't know if the young intern meant her baby or Kyo. Enjoy your last night as a single lady, Haruno-san. Fumio waved with a free arm as Sakura walked away. The pink-haired woman nodded with half of a smile. Kami knew what awaited her in the bar where her bachelorette party was being held. Knowing Ino and Shizu, she was going to be swimming in alcohol and strippers. I wonder what Naruto is doing for his party. The Kunoichi could just imagine the blonde shinobi and his other male friends downing shot after shot of burning liquor. Naruto wasn't a big drinker, but when the occasion called for it, Sakura knew he would join the festivities. The pink-haired woman didn't like drinking, but she wouldn't mind a shot or two tonight. Besides, this was technically her last night as a free woman, why couldn't she have fun? Sakura's thoughts began to wander to predictions of tonight's events as she made her way to Ino's place. Her friend was very firm about the Kunoichi dressing the part for her party, and had ordered her to stop at her apartment before arriving at the bar. Sakura took a deep breath as she stopped right at the blonde woman's doorstep. Before she could knock, the door swung open and Sakura was met with a loud squeal. Billboard brow. Come in. You have great timing. I was going crazy trying to find that miniskirt and top I wore a few months back. Ino turned around and rushed back into her apartment. Tenten, you brought the heels, right? The blonde called into the apartment and left Sakura standing dumbfounded at her doorstep. What the hell was that woman going on about? A miniskirt. Heels. Yeah, Ino, I have them right here. Tenten popped out from the door to Ino's kitchen, twirling a pair of thin-strapped black stilettos. Her brown eyes met Sakura's, and they glimmered in a smile. Hey, Sakura, she said as her eyes roamed over the pink-haired woman's body. Ino was right. Dressing you is definitely a priority. The brunette placed the 3-inch heels atop the living room table and walked over to the stunned Kunoichi. Hinata, did you bring the kit? Hi. The violet-haired woman came into the living room, followed by a flustered Ino. Hinata placed a large caboodle next to Tenten's stilettos and walked over to greet Sakura in a hug. The pink-haired woman returned the gesture, but her green eyes were focused on her blonde friend, who scuttled about the room, gathering odds and ends, bits and pieces, all of which ended up on the table with the other items. What the hell is going on? Sakura finally found her voice as she worked her legs into locomotion, forcing herself into the apartment. Ino looked up and smiled as she gestured to all of the items that were spread about the table. This, billboard brow, is your saving grace. Ino tugged on Sakura's long-sleeved jacket and positioned her at the table. Almost immediately, the blonde began to remove Sakura's clothing. We all agreed that our goal for tonight is to get you laid. And these are going to be your weapons of choice. Ino opened Hinata's caboodle to reveal a treasure trove of hairpins, brushes, a flat iron, curlers, tubes of lipstick, lip gloss, mascara, eyeliner, blush, eyeshadow, foundation, and pounds upon pounds of jewelry. Sakura looked over to the violet-haired Inuzuka woman in complete awe. Hinata blushed and made her way over to her mound of cosmetics and jewelry. Being in such a family as the Hyugas, women were taught how to dress the part of royalty. Hinata smiled gently as she stepped behind Sakura and began to undo the woman's pink hair from its ponytail. Hinata is going to give you the accessories to look like a queen, and Tenten and I will give you the clothes to look like a vixen. But what about the party? You can get wasted come the wedding reception, Sakura. Ino continued stripping Sakura down. Of course, you might need to have a few drinks in you if you want to do tonight's mission right. Ino and Tenten laughed loudly as Hinata's face darkened with a blush. What? Sakura couldn't process this. They were what? Billboard brow, maybe I should say this one more time. Ino placed a gentle hand onto Sakura's shoulder and smiled wickedly. We are going to turn you into a seductress tonight. Your only goal is to infiltrate Naruto's bachelor party, seduce the hell out of him, and finally, fuck his brains out. There should be absolutely no reason for you to go without sex when you're getting engaged, even if you have a kid. Tenten's smile was just as devious as Ino's. They're right. Hinata's voice was small but firm. It must have taken so much courage for the woman to come here under such circumstances. So think of this as a wedding gift from the three of us. Ino finally peeled away the last of Sakura's clothing and handed the woman a pair of crimson lace panties. They had cherry blossoms sewn onto the sides. What was with her friend and designer panties? Sakura didn't know what to say. Should she yell at them? She wanted to scream to the high heavens about how embarrassing it was to have your friends dress you up to seduce your fiancé into the sack. But somewhere, deep inside, she felt a kernel of excitement building up. She never thought about herself as the seductress, but just imagining the look on Naruto's face that night so long ago sent pleasant chills up and down her body. And to think that she would be inciting that look in him once more made her toes curl. Change, will you? Tenten said impatiently. We need to get you ready and then teach you the tricks of the trade. The brunette looked over to Ino and smiled devilishly. Tricks that made even Neji howl like a wolf. Sakura's heart pounded with a mixture of apprehension and fear. How exactly was she supposed to seduce Naruto? All right, Naruto, drink up, because this is your last night as a bachelor. Chuji's voice rang throughout the tavern, where nearly the entire male ninja population of Konoha had gathered for Naruto's last day as a single man. The Uzumaki looked around at all the faces of the people that cared for him. He could feel his heart swell with pride and happiness. In just a matter of hours, several hours, Naruto would be standing in front of Tsunade-chan as she conducted the ceremony that would tie the blonde shinobi and the love of his life, Sakura Haruno, together, forever. He couldn't describe the amount of bliss he felt. Would you just drink already? Kiba pounded the blonde man's back painfully. Naruto laughed lightly and swallowed the liquor in one gulp. It seared his throat, but he felt his muscles loosen and his mind relax. He didn't usually drink, but tonight was a special occasion, and who was he to halt the celebration? Another round over here, his sensei Kakashi called out. He loved his liquor. Naruto looked around and wondered if Sakura's party was this insane. She never told him what they were doing, but from what he heard about Ino's bachelorette party, he was sure it would be no less festive. There would probably be even more liquor than they had going around in this place, with Tsunade-chan supposedly dropping in on her only apprentice's party. That woman's body had to be flammable with all the booze she drank. Suddenly some high-pitched whistles rang throughout the bar. Naruto looked up to find a crowd of men circling around something or someone near the door to the tavern. What's going on? Neji called out to the group. Apparently a female entered the rooster's nest. Sasuke sounded bored, but that was just his usual tone. Naruto looked to the side to see Shikamaru downing a dark shot and Kiba returning the Uzumaki's gaze with a wolfish grin. Naruto cocked an eyebrow, completely confused towards the Inuzuka's reaction. The large crowd parted as whomever was in the center made their way towards the table where Naruto and his closer friends were seated. The Uzumaki adjusted himself as his pulse began to quicken. A stripper. He had specifically told his buddies to not hire a dancer. He only had Sakura in his mind, and there was no way he could enjoy himself at this party if some dancer was grinding their body into Naruto's lower regions. Finally, the person in the center of the buzzing crowd came into view. Naruto's eyes were glued onto the floor, his stubborn self refusing to look at anyone other than Sakura. But as he looked down at what was most definitely a familiar woman's set of legs, his breath caught. Those smooth and creamy legs that went on for miles thanks to a pair of heels made Naruto's blue eyes move on their own. They trailed on up towards what was one of the most form-fitting skirts he had ever seen. When she moved, it seemed to show the slightest hint of her panties. And Kami, those hips, they looked absolutely delicious. In the pit of Naruto's stomach, he felt a fire begin to blaze, one that he had been trying to squelch for over the past few weeks. His gaze trailed up the woman's abs to rest on the site of her full chest that was held together with some laced-up leather top. And finally, when he looked in those big, beautiful green eyes, Naruto knew he was gone. He felt his bottom half quiver to life and Kami help him. He would have taken her right then and there had there been no table between them. Sakura looked sexy. Holy shit, did she look sexy. Something about her eyes, her curled hair, and gleaming, luscious lips made not only Naruto but every other shinobi around her drool. And something about those eyes looked different to the blonde shinobi. The look was familiar, but he couldn't place it. His mind could barely form any thoughts except those that would get his skull cracked open by Sakura's powerful fist. She made her way over to him, her hips swaying in a seductive rhythm. And from behind him, Naruto felt his chair being pulled away from the table to give room for Sakura to stand directly in front of the stunned idiot. A smile curved her shining lips, and finally Naruto's mind conjured up the word that described the look Sakura was giving him right now. He had seen it so many times in people's eyes as he traveled all those years with Jiraiya-sensei, and he even was the recipient of a few of those looks. Lust. Sakura's eyes darkened to a smoky green under the fluorescent light of the tavern as she moved her body closer and closer to Naruto. Music from somewhere in the room sparked to life as the men formed a circle around the couple. The blonde shinobi felt his mind halt in thought and his pulse quicken when Sakura suddenly turned around and began to sway her hips inches from him. Naruto could feel heat radiate off of her body and the slight scent of flowers drift towards him. Sakura inched her curvaceous hips closer and closer to Naruto's lap, and the shinobi felt his throat go dry. His eyes were locked onto her well-toned ass oscillating ever so sensuously. The pink-haired beauty hovered above Naruto's lap, teasing him with the slightest touches to his thighs. Whistles and leering eyes replicated throughout the room, but Naruto was too engrossed with what was in front of him. The Kunoichi had finally lowered her hips onto the orange-clad shinobi's lap and had moved her lower body in one deliciously tormenting circle. She brought her arms down and rested her hands onto his upper thighs, running their length up and down, driving Naruto crazy with the friction. He couldn't believe Sakura was giving him a lap dance in front of all these people, let alone at all. It was one of Naruto's wildest fantasies to have Sakura dance for him in something so scandalous. The only thing he would change was the atmosphere of all the people surrounding them and all the stealing glances of Sakura as she danced before them. Naruto didn't know what to do with himself as she built the pressure of her body against him. The music changed into a harsher, more raw beat and suddenly Sakura changed her pace. The woman pulled herself up and turned around to face Naruto. She smiled seductively as she leaned forward, her cheeks slightly blushing as her breasts came into Naruto's direct line of sight. She shook her hips along to the jagged beat, and the shinobi watched, entranced as she closed the space between them to trace her fingers alongside Naruto's defined jaw line. She teasingly fluttered her lips across his dry mouth, laughing lightly along the way. Naruto caught the slightest scent of alcohol on her breath. He knew she would have never done this without some help of the loosening drink, but there was no denying. She was loving it, the little minx. And as she straightened her body, she softly grazed the edges of her breasts across Naruto's face. The heat within Naruto stirred dangerously with every shift of her body, every swing of her head, tossing her hair this way and that. Now that there wasn't anything obstructing his view or blocking his way, he would take her. Kami help anyone who would get in his way. It had been far too long since he had the taste of her on his lips. As Sakura raised her arms up and curled her fingers through her soft pink locks, she felt a strong and warm pair of arms wrap around her waist. She gasped lightly as she felt those pair of arms lift her up into the air and bring her eye to eye with Naruto. Her breath caught, and she felt that volcano within her boiling with anticipation. Naruto's eyes were hazy with what could only be arousal, the very same feeling Sakura had been tormented with all those weeks. Naruto didn't even say one word as he took Sakura out of the bar, but they knew it didn't matter. Whistles and shrieks of laughter overpowered the music from the jukebox and poured out through the entrance of the tavern. Sakura kept her green eyes locked onto Naruto as he sped through the dark and empty streets, carrying her towards his apartment. He slammed the door closed as quickly as he had opened it and plopped Sakura on her feet, leaving her only a second to catch her breath before he captured her lips. He was ravenous and hungry for her. Sakura returned the desire, nibbling on his lower lip teasingly. Naruto growled in approval and swirled his tongue between Sakura's lips, leaving a delicious taste of ramen and liquor in the Kunoichi's mouth. Sakura moaned lightly as she felt Naruto's hands grip her waist tightly to lift her against the door and to press his body into more firmly. Sakura pulled her mouth away to suck in a cold breath of air, only to have Naruto draw her lips back to him a second later. Naruto's hands roamed all over her body, leaving no curve or crevice untouched. His hot fingers played with the lacing of her leather bustier, and a low growl of annoyance emitted from his warm lips. Sakura pulled his hands back to her hips and unlaced the bodice for him, leaving the clothing on the floor. She sucked in a quick breath as her breasts came in contact with the cool apartment air. She moaned loudly as Naruto quickly dipped his head down to nibble on her left nipple while kneading her right breast. His mouth returned to Sakura's, and he was ravenous, sucking and nipping her, drawing the breath from Sakura's swollen lips. The pink-haired woman felt that heat in her roaring, and she decided she couldn't wait. She tore at Naruto's jacket, throwing the black and orange cloth to the floor, not missing a beat as she worked on his pants next. Her fingers fumbled slightly with the zipper to his pants as Naruto teased her with his lips against her neck. Finally down to his boxers, Naruto took her to his room and tossed her onto the large, unmade bed. Sakura was flooded with his scent and arched her back against the cool sheets as she felt the bed dip with Naruto's weight. She immediately felt a pair of rough but loving hands pull at her skirt, sliding the leather down her legs. Naruto tossed the skirt somewhere into the darkness of his room and ran his hand up the length of Sakura's left leg, sending a pleasant shiver throughout the Kunoichi's body. He lowered his head, trailing light kisses all along her upper thighs, inching closer to Sakura's crimson panties and what lay beneath them. Sakura bit onto one of her fingers as Naruto flicked his tongue over her clothed mound. She arched her back against the bed and tried to press Naruto closer to her, but apparently the Uzumaki thought it was his turn to seduce and tease. His calloused hands pressed her body back down to the bed, and she felt his warm breath against her thighs and through her panties. It was absolutely maddening. Naruto kissed alongside her sex while running his fingers ever so lightly under the lining of the lace underwear. Sakura whined a little, and a warm laughter vibrated against Sakura's thigh, and she almost lost it. Naruto hooked his thumbs under the hem of Sakura's panties and slid them off of her body. Sakura screamed loudly in pleasure as Naruto pressed his hot mouth onto her mound and began to suck her swollen clit. His tongue flicked between her lips, and Sakura's legs turned into jelly. The volcano that rumbled within her was close to eruption and she knew her lover could sense it. Naruto sucked and nibbled on her clit with more vigor, and the moment his hands reached to massage her breasts, the Kunoichi felt the volcano in her explode. Ah, Naruto. A blinding white light blurred her vision as her body burst with pleasure. But the Uzumaki didn't stop. He lifted her towards him, and in moments, his boxes were tossed aside. He was hard and ready. Sakura yelped as he plunged into her orifice and began to pump and thrust into her relentlessly. Sakura's vision had all but barely cleared when he brought the Kunoichi over the edge once more. The pink-haired woman bit her lip from moaning any louder than she already had, and Naruto leaned into her ear, a growl escaping his lips. Don't. I want to hear you moan my name. His hot breath against the nape of her neck alone was enough to make the Kunoichi cry out in ecstasy. Sakura dug her nails into his well-toned back as he pounded into her, as she felt him graze against that one place that would make her come with a few more thrusts. He was close, Sakura could tell with his jagged pumps and breathing. Sakura rolled her hips around, adding more friction to the touch. Naruto grunted, and Sakura felt him ram right into that spot that made her explode once more in pleasure. The Uzumaki's member pulsed with release as Sakura's walls clenched around him. Naruto dipped down to capture Sakura's lips, and he swallowed her screams of satisfaction while muffling his own moans of pleasure. It went on continuously like that until the light broke through the bedroom window. Hours of moaning, sweat, juices, and kisses all over each other's body. Sakura couldn't count how many times they had done it, but Kami knew it wouldn't be the last time they were going to do it. The couple finally collapsed onto the bed into a deep sleep that was unfortunately interrupted a few hours later. Naruto. Sakura. Open up, you two. Ino. Sakura's mind was swimming with the thoughts of Naruto and what he did to her all night and morning long. Where did he learn those kinds of moves? But then again, the blonde shinobi was probably wondering the same thing about the pink-haired woman and her sudden seductive dancing. Sakura's eyes inched around the room and landed on Naruto's alarm clock. Then all of a sudden, her mind cleared. Shit. She sat bolt upright and punched the sleeping lump next to her. The lump stirred awake, and Naruto sat up, rubbing his head, a painful expression contorting his face. What's wrong? He groaned in his half-awake state. Sakura-chan. What is it? We're supposed to be getting married, Barker. Sakura jumped out of the bed and began running around, looking for her panties and other clothes. Where the hell did Naruto throw them? He rubbed the back of his head and yawned widely. I know that, Sakura-chan. But that's not for several hours. No, Barker. Try 30 minutes. There they are. Sakura snatched up the dark red lace panties and pulled on one of Naruto's shirts. That would have to do for now. She needed to answer the door and calm the frantic Ino. What? Naruto jumped up so quickly, he fell off of the bed and onto the floor with a loud thud. But Sakura was already out of the room and opening the front door before she could help the shinobi up. Finally, billboard, Ino stopped in her tracks the moment she took in Sakura's state. The blonde's face contorted as she muffled a snort of laughter. Sakura's cheeks darkened in a deep blush, and she knew she should have pulled on some of the Uzumaki's pants as well. The blonde Kunoichi clutched her side as she tried to stifle her guffaws and loud laughs, but it was useless. Sakura rolled her eyes in annoyance and growled for the Nara woman to enter the apartment already. Oh okay, Okay, I think I can breathe now. Ino looked back to Sakura as she took several steps into the dwelling and tripped slightly. The woman bent down and picked up what turned out to be the bustier Sakura borrowed the night before. Ino smiled brazenly and cocked an eyebrow towards the medic Nin. Have fun. Sakura snatched the leather top from her giggling friend, using all of her willpower to not smack her upside the head. You're lucky you're pregnant, pig. Sakura took the change of clothes Ino had brought with her and immediately began to slip into them. They were simple training clothes, something she could run in back to Ino's apartment so she could shower and get ready for the ceremony. Shika's on his way over with the suit. Go say goodbye to your groom for now. Ino nodded to behind Sakura, and the pink-haired woman turned around to find a half-naked, bright-eyed looking Naruto standing in the doorway to his bedroom. Sakura felt her skin tingle with attraction, but she quelled the feeling. Right now was not the time. She walked over to the Uzumaki, and his eyes sparkled with laughter as they caught her gaze. See you at the end of the aisle, Sakura-chan. He smiled his boyish grin, flashing his pearly white teeth. Sakura smiled back and kissed his cheek lightly before turning around to follow Ino out. Tsunade stood in the center of the Western Park, atop a platform where she would finally be marrying Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno. She had done so many of these ceremonies that it was a blur of dresses and booze in her head, but this time was different. Sakura was her daughter, not by blood, but when did blood ever matter? That stubborn Kunoichi had grown into a fine young woman, and if Tsunade ever cried at these things, this would be the one where she would bawl to the high heavens. But she had to at least get past the vows, and once she got to the reception, a few glasses of sake would calm her down. To Tsunade's side stood a very fidgety blonde idiot, and to his left was Sasuke Uchiha. Apparently after all those years of trials and tribulations, they had remained friends. Team 7, one of the strongest and most chaotic teams Tsunade had ever seen. Sakura had unknowingly been the glue that kept that team together, and those two men knew it. Even though the Hokage knew her apprentice thought herself the weakest link of the group, she was, in fact, the most stable and strong. Though she did tend to cry a lot, her emotions were what helped Naruto and Sasuke pull through what normal humans would have fallen victim to. And to think Tsunade was marrying two of the members of the greatest team in Konoha history. It was just another moment to prove that even through all the pain and sadness, happiness and love could and would survive. There was always hope, and those two, no, three, were proof of that. Tsunade straightened up once she heard the soft music sound as Sakura made her way down the aisle towards her teammates and her Shizu. The Hokage knew that if she didn't pull herself together, she was going to cry. Sakura looked absolutely beautiful, and she reminded the Hokage of herself when she was Sakura's age all those years ago, those years when her own lover was still alive. But now wasn't the time to think of love lost, but of newly found, newly discovered love. Sakura and Naruto had one hell of a life ahead of them. In a small patch of grass near the gates to the village of Konoha sat a large mound of rocks and two objects, a stone of amethyst and a sprig of thyme. Sakura Haruno crouched in her flowing wedding gown as she placed a third object, a letter, on the small memorial to her fallen friend, Tama Nakamura. Sakura's green eyes shined with tears, but she just wouldn't cry. Sakura's fingers gently ran over the green amulet that her dear friend had given her as she thought carefully about her words. Thank you, Tama. You have done so much for me. And although your body is lying miles away, I will visit this small memorial every day for the rest of my life. I will tell my children of your wonderful and kind heart. And in them, you will live. Sakura took a deep breath, releasing her tension, and she stood as she sensed another presence approaching. Sasuke. Sakura didn't need to look to know that it was the Uchiha who stood behind her. You're missing your wedding reception. That's very selfish of you. Sakura didn't feel like arguing right now, but she couldn't help the aggravated sigh that escaped her. Well, I guess everyone deserves to have a selfish moment every now and then. It is supposed to be my day today, after all. She heard the shinobi's soft footsteps sound beside her, and she watched as he bent down to place something atop the mound next to Sakura's letter, a bronze coin. The same coin Tama had given Sasuke that mission those months long ago. He still had it. Sasuke stood back up and said nothing, but it was almost a comfort to Sakura. For if he had said anything, Sakura didn't know if she could respond, not without crying. They stood there for a long moment in silence until finally, they heard another set of steps sound from behind them. Sasuke. Sakura-chan. Sakura turned to find Naruto holding a slumbering Toru in his arms. She couldn't blame the infant, it had been a long day. Sakura smiled sadly and walked over to her newlywed husband. The Uzumaki's eyes softened in knowing, and he opened his arm for Sakura to burrow in. The Kunoichi gratefully found her way into his embrace and wrapped her arms around Naruto as she let her tears silently fall. She would be proud, Sakura-chan. Naruto's voice thrummed against the Kunoichi, comforting her. Sakura took a deep breath and nodded, wiping away any evidence of her tears shed. She looked down to Toru to find him stirring awake. His green eyes blinked slowly open, and a smile instantly spread across his face at the sight of his mother. He giggled and cooed happily, reaching out to be held by her. Sakura immediately wrapped her arms around Toru and drew him in. The blonde boy laughed and played with Sakura's thin veil as the Kunoichi walked back over to the memorial mound where Sasuke stood quietly. Naruto followed and stood beside his wife, teammate, and friend. The Uzumaki looked over to Sasuke and smiled widely. The Uchiha stared at his teammate and then looked over to the giggling Toru, his eyes lingering on the infant for a long while. And then slowly, a corner of the side of his mouth drew up in the tiniest of smiles. Annoying, all of you are just annoying. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.